How much is our knowledge in regards to the 1947 division of India? That we got freedom from the colonial rule? Yes, we did get the transfer of power, but we paid a huge price for it. We lost 8,22,000 kilometers of our land to the making of Pakistan, the size of UK and France combined. And we lost more than 40 lakh innocent Hindu lives apart from those of the revolutionaries. We were taught that the British played a divide and rule game and created bitterness between the Hindus and the Muslims. Was the bitterness so intense that they couldn't live with us, that they asked for a separate land for themselves? Do you know that the British divided the Hindus too in 1901 in 2,378 castes and 43 races? Did those 2,421 groups of Hindus demand that much land or that many different countries for themselves? No. Why should a Hindu, or for that matter any Indian or any citizen of a country, ask for a separate land for himself when he can live, pray, work, practice his faith in any part of this country when the entire land is his? So what could the history behind the partition of Bharatvarsh be? We could divide it in three major parts. One, the formation of the mental makeup that demanded a divide. And that period is 635 to 1767, from the first to the last invasion of Bharat. The Hindu heroes fought for their motherland, where most countries fell to the Islamic invasion in just 17 to 20 years. The Hindu Rajas of Sindh, Afghanistan, which is the gates of Bharatvarsh, did not let the invaders enter the nation for almost 80 long years. And that kind of resistance and that kind of treatment is what the invaders received throughout the country. Let me give you one example of the making of that radical mindset. When Debal was captured by Qasim, many Hindus were converted. One new convert called Maulana Islami was sent with a Syrian to Raja Dahir's court to deliver a message. The Syrian bowed down to the Raja, but this new convert refused to do it. When asked whether he had forgotten the discipline and the decorum of the court, this new convert, Mullah Islami, said, "My faith does not allow me to bow down in front of anyone." The radical mindset that would divide the country in 1947 was already made. And the part two can be those new converts, along with the invaders, considered Bharatvarsh as Darul Harb, which is the land that they were at war with all the time. And that period is largely from the 15th till the 18th century. Unlike the popularly established peace-loving image of the Sufis played a huge role in the conversion of Hindus and the desecration of our temples. Let me give you one example here. In the early 1600s, Ahmad Sirhindi, a Sufi of the Naqshbandi Silsila, emphasized on Jizya and on Sharia-controlled Bharatvarsh. He was also instrumental in getting Guru Arjan Dev Ji and his followers tortured and killed. In the 1700s, a follower of Ibn Abdul Wahab, Shah Waliullah Dehelvi, propagated the Wahhabi cult that later emerged as the Deobandis. In the 1748, he invited Shah Ahmad Abdali to invade India and crush the growing power of Marathas, of the Jats and of the Sikhs. All the Nawabs supported him, 34 ulemas sided him, and even the British supported him. Waliullah's father had founded a madrasa called Madrasa-e-Rahmati in Delhi. In 1821, Waliullah's son Abdul Aziz gave the task of establishing caliphate in Kashmir and spreading jihad to one Ahmad Barelvi. Barelvi toured India and gathered 80,000 Wahhabis and used Balakot as a launch pad, but was beheaded by the Sikhs in the Battle of 1831. And then came the 1857 War of Independence, and there were many prominent Muslims who sided the British. India would have been liberated on the 31st of May 1857 through simultaneous rising of sepoys throughout the country as planned by Nana Sahib over 3 long years. But the uncontrollable spirit of Mangal Pandey jumped with a loaded gun, killing Major Hugson, and we were pushed into another 90 years of British slavery, unfortunately. After the mutiny of 1857, the lands of Hindus were confiscated and given to the Muslims who had sided the British. One such man was Sayyid Ahmad Khan. Sayyid Ahmad Khan in 1875, on the 56th birthday of Queen Victoria, founded this Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, which later came to be known as Madrasatul Uloom, and in 1920 this came to be called Aligarh Muslim University. Muslims also were promised by the British non-interference in their religious matters. The Article 26 to 30 of the Indian Constitution can be called an extension of that same courtesy. 1857 to 1905 was a major turning point in the 1947 divide of India. Sayyid Ahmad Khan in 1857 also established a narrative that 2 nations existed within Bharatvarsh with 2 distinct religions, and he is gone on record in a speech at Meerut in 1888. In 1888, he also founded one Mohammedan Educational Conference, which was also called Aligarh Movement, and this very movement or this very body came to be known as Muslim League in the 20th session of the Mohammedan Educational Conference, as suggested by Samiullah, the Nawab of Dhaka. 3,000 delegates had attended this 20th session, where it was renamed the Muslim League. Sayyid Ahmad Khan is projected as a hero even today in our country. The part 3 of the history of the amputation of the Saraswati Sindhu civilization in 1947 is the timeline of events starting 1905, the critical giveaway as a prelude to the partition. The recurrent saga of butchering of thousands upon thousands of Hindus, of rapes and abductions of thousands of Hindu women, of carrying off of little girls and of widows to be violated by groups, of plundering of temples, of homes and of properties, forced conversions and unimaginable atrocities on the Hindus. All the attacks were organized and politically supported. The mobs were armed with firearms, with swords and knives, with bombs, with petrol, etc. All the attacks were so-called triggered by Muharram processions or a Nagar Kirtan passing from in front of a mosque or from a Holi or a Diwali, and the felling of the trees to block the roads, the cutting off of the telegraph lines, the destruction of railroads and bridges. All this is so commonly heard or seen even today. Most attacks went unreported. Memory of them lied only in the consciousness of people. 16th October 1905. Curzon, combined with the residue of Islamic imperialism, partitioned Bengal. The Muslim ambition of converting East Bengal into Dar al-Islam was set aflame, and with the support of the English officers and the magistrates, call for jihad burst full fury on Hindus. An estimated 4,000 people died in 3 days of continuous attacks. In 1906, the 1886 formed Mohammedan Educational Conference was renamed Muslim League. A Lal Ishtihar was distributed, following which the jihadis fell upon the Hindus. Incited by Samiullah, the Nawab of Dhaka, wholesale loot, rape and murder followed in Comilla and Jamalpur. British war correspondent H.W. Nevison reported, when Mohammedans rioted, the police ransacked Hindu houses. Mullahs went through the country preaching the revival of Islam and proclaiming to the villagers that the British government was on their side, that the law courts had been specially suspended for 3 months, so no penalty would be exacted for violence done to the Hindus or for looting their shops or the abductions of Hindu women. A red pamphlet was everywhere circulated, maintaining the same wild doctrine. 1909. Separate electorates for Muslims were announced as a result of the Muslim League's protests in India and lobbying in London. 1920. Muhammad Ali Johar along with some others established Jamia Millia Islamia. 1920. Muhammad Ali Johar and Shaukat Ali led Khilafat movement in defense of the Ottoman Caliphate and was supported by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who issued non-cooperation in the support of Khilafat. The first education minister of independent India, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, also became the leader of the Khilafat movement, during which he became close to Gandhi. Maulana Azad during this period is reported to have said that democracy is un-Islamic, and like the medieval Muslim invaders, a strong-headed minority in the longer run will obtain majority in India by means of conversion and a higher demographic growth. About the making of Pakistan in the 1930s, he has gone on record saying that from the Islamic viewpoint, Pakistan can only be a temporary tactic in the way of the ultimate goal, that is the Islamization of India. Remember the ultimate goal. 1921. Left and right hand of Gandhiji, Ali brothers invited Amanatullah of Afghanistan to invade India. Following the Khilafat movement, the Mofla Muslims under one Muhammad Haji as Khalif proclaimed jihad on Hindus and killed 2,000, and this is the official figure, and 20,000 were converted. Property worth 3 crore was looted. Allahu Akbar was the battle cry of Khilafat. Khilafat leaders praised the rioters as heroes fighting for the glory of Islam, and Gandhi is supposed to have said, brave God-fearing people fighting for the religion in a manner they consider religious. He continued spreading his protective wings on the Ali brothers, who had reaffirmed their pan-Islamism more than once. Abdul Rashid visited the ailing Swami Shraddhanand and made an excuse of being thirsty and sent his attendant away to bring water for him. And meanwhile, he shot Swami 4 times in his chest. Swami lay there dead. Swami had presided over the Congress session at Amritsar in 1919 after the Jallianwala massacre, since Congress had declined to do so. Swami had also addressed a huge gathering from the minars of Jama Masjid in Delhi for the national solidarity and Vedic Dharma, and he had started his speech with the mantra and launched a Shuddhi campaign to bring the converted Hindus back to the Hindu fold. 18,000 plus had returned to Hindu fold in the first half of 1923. Huge funds were gathered to protect Abdul Rashid. Asif Ali of Congress defended Abdul Rashid, but he lost and Rashid was hung. Over 50,000 joined his funeral processions. Special namaz was recited for him. Does this sound familiar? Throughout Punjab in 1922 and 23, Bengal and UP, following a Muharram procession, an estimated 20,000 Hindus were killed. In 1924, Kohat, now in Pakistan, 155 out of the total population of 3,000 were killed. In 1926, 200 were killed, 975 injured. In 1928 in Bombay, 400 were killed, 740 were injured. 1931 in Kanpur, 400 were killed, 1200 were injured. 1932 Bombay, 217 were killed and 2570 injured. Communal award was announced around that time and Congress did not reject it. 1946 September Bombay, 320 were killed. 1946 Muslim League announced the Direct Action Day as a demand of separate Muslim state. Jinnah said, "We'll have a divided India or a destroyed India." 1 lakh Muslims were mobilized in Ramzan under the leadership of Hussain Shurawardi. They were supplied with firearms, 1-month rations, and petrol coupons despite the shortage of petrol. In Howrah, Sharif Khan, the mayor of Calcutta, guided them. Out of 24 police headquarters, in 22, the Hindu officers were replaced by the Muslim officers. 2 full days, the mobs were let loose on Hindus. In Calcutta alone, 20,000 were killed and 1,500 injured. 1 lakh homeless. In Noakhali, 50,000 were killed. Almost entire Hindu population was nearly annihilated. The streets were piled with corpses of heights of 2 stories. Carcasses of cows lay stinking behind the bodies of their owners. Let me give you one example of their brutalities here. The Mayar Fauj of Ghulam Sarwar surrounded the house of Rajendra Lal Rai Chaudhary, the president of Hindu Mahasabha. After 1 full day of resistance from Chaudhary, his house was set on fire. He was beheaded and his severed head was sent on a platter to Ghulam Sarwar along with 2 little daughters of Rajendra Lal as gifts. In the remote Sandweep island, which had no motor cars, entire village was burnt with petrol exported from the mainland. 24th November 1946 was Diwali. A Muslim leader in Chapra said, "Rejoice," illuminating the Hindu houses. 5th March 1947, the Hindu students of Rawalpindi protesting against the formation of a communal Muslim League were attacked by the police and the Leaguers. Following that, the Peer of Golara Sharif, as they do even today in Pakistan, encouraged a fully prepared Muslim League-led mob. Lahore and Amritsar, Multan, Rawalpindi, Kamalpur, Jhelum, Sargodha were attacked non-stop for weeks, and by the end of March, those penniless surviving Hindus were transferred into refugee camps established all over Punjab, Jhelum and Sargodha. Village after village were attacked. Well supplied with daggers, swords, spears and firearms, bands were subsidized monetarily by League. Cash payments were made to the assassins based on the numbers of the Hindus killed. Patrolling groups in jeeps went about slaughtering stray Hindus. Weapon supplies were sent from Northwest Frontier Province and money was sent from Delhi-based politicians. Mobs descended on Kautha village, poured buckets of petrol on Hindu homes. Families screaming were consumed by the flames. Those who escaped were caught, tied together, soaked with petrol and burnt alive. In Toa Khalsa, after resisting for 3 days, a truce was negotiated with the Muslims with 20,000 rupees and an agreement that they may loot the houses but not burn them, not kill the men or dishonor the women. Hindus and Sikhs gathered in the Haveli of Sardar Gulab Singh and in the Dukhbhanjani Gurdwara and saw their houses being looted and burned. The mobs then surrounded the Haveli, but when defeat was imminent, while the men fought, the women with their children jumped into the wells inside the Haveli. The whole of the Hindu-Sikh region looked as if it was air-raided. Official figures of killed Hindus were only 3,000, whereas thousands of Hindu men, women and children were slaughtered. Their shops were looted, business establishments were shut, Hindus were confined to their four walls. The Hindus who were living in the Muslim areas were killed, and those who did manage to escape became penniless. And it was thought that after the partition things would normalize and they would continue to live in Rawalpindi. Mountbatten, after visiting Rawalpindi, reported to the British government in England that the whole of the Hindu-Sikh part is an absolute wreck, as though it has been subjected to an air raid. Several Hindu villages are wiped out. Though a separate number of female casualties is not available, the official figure of deaths in the district of Rawalpindi was 3,263, which was far below the actual number. The woman was subjected to maximum humiliation and torture. 3rd June 1947, the Mountbatten Plan was accepted. The date for the transfer of power, mind you, the transfer of power and not independence was June 1948, but was advanced to 15th August 1947, giving only 6 weeks to complete the arrangements for partition. The demarcation line was disclosed only 2 days after partition. Just those few days took the lives of over 40 lakh Hindus, countless were injured and over 80 lakh were displaced. Figures and incidents in Pakistan thereafter are not known. Just one such incident on the 22nd of August in Kunja, West Punjab is known, where 350 Hindus were butchered. With lost social and individual identities, leaving behind their rich lands, flourishing businesses, factories, whatever, the battle for survival had just begun for the displaced Hindus. My paternal and maternal families were also one of them. They had paid more than full price for the freedom of this country. Trains carrying 3,000 to 4,000 Hindu refugees every day were derailed using explosives. Crude weapons were used to kill almost all the passengers. The number of Hindu victims is indeed unimaginable and uncountable. Refugee columns moving on foot were attacked, and when the trains carrying butchered Hindus reached Amritsar, the streets were littered with festering corpses and stink, choked drains, night soil, dirt. According to its original conception, Pakistan was to be larger than it turned out to be, with Kashmir, Assam, Bengal, Malabar and many Muslim states. Whatever remained of India was to be considered Diniya, meaning if not an Islamic state at that moment, it was to be converted to Islam in the time to come. The word Pakistan was coined by Chaudhry Rehmat Ali and 3 Cambridge Muslim students in the Round Table Conference on 28 January 1933, according to which P for Punjab, A for Afghanistan, K for Kashmir, S for Sindh, Tan for Balochistan, etc. Rehmat Ali floated a pamphlet titled Now or Never. And still concerned about the Muslims of United Provinces and Bihar that could not be included in Pakistan during the partition, Maulana Abul Kalam propagated a theory called hostage population theory. And a small Hindu population in Pakistan was held back as hostages to further negotiate with India. State of those Hindus in Pakistan is not hidden from the world. They've been fighting the ongoing 1947 war for the last 73 years, subjected to Muslim atrocities. The foundation of the biggest mass migration and holocaust in the history of humanity is as old as 1385 years. It didn't just happen by chance as drilled into our heads, but was the outcome of the conspiracy of establishing a Muslim state of a purely Islamic character. Our leaders betrayed us. Why did Congress accept one boundary commission for Punjab and Bengal? Why did they accept one man commission instead of three men commission? Why at all did they accept Cyril Radcliffe, the man who had worked as junior counsel to Jinnah? The loot, murder, arson, rapes, abduction of women faced by millions of Hindus and Sikhs of West Punjab, Northwest Frontier Province and Sindh, and the raider occupied Kashmir for months was the outcome of a conspiracy that had been under planning for centuries. Why did the Congress call for the boycott of 1931 census, calling it communal enumeration, whereas the Muslim leaders urged the Muslims to enumerate fully, left an impact on India Act of 1935, and also resulted in the tilting balance in favor of Muslims in several districts? The 1941 census figures proved to be a crucial factor for the demarcation of the boundaries. In Sindh, where there was League ministry, the design to accede to Pakistan was left to the assembly. In the Northwest Frontier Province, where the Congress had its ministry, there was to be referendum of people to renew their preferences. Sylhet district of Assam, where Muslim majority was carved out of the province for ascertaining the will of the people, whereas the same choice was denied to the district of Tharparkar, Sindh, on the border of Rajasthan, where the Hindus were in majority. Why were the leaders quietly letting it happen? Hindus were indeed betrayed. The Muslims moved out of choice. Hindus had no choice. History bears me out.